Just wanted to start by thanking you again for being willing to do one of these. We really appreciate your time. Um,
Thank you.
and feel free to be as honest as possible, just as he was saying, that
Okay.
really helps someone who's in a similar situation. Um,
Okay.
if you want to start by kind of walking us through what happened at the intersection and what happened at the accident.
Okay. I was living in Virginia at the time and actually come to Casper for a 6-week vacation and had 1 week left of my vacation time. We were driving home from dinner. We were at a stoplight. The light changed and we began to pull away when we were suddenly smacked from behind by a truck. It happened without warning. The impact threw our seats forward and then snapped back into the back seat and broke. And we were just in a complete panic at that point.
And what was going through your mind right after the accident and the moment that followed, considering that you and your husband were both injured?
Actually, shock was the initial. We were scared mostly for one another because we knew we both were hurt, but didn't really know to what degree. The police and the EMTs were there almost immediately. My husband was at that time my fiance. He has chronic heart failure, and so they were concerned about a brain bleed because of the impact to his head. So they rushed him off to the ER immediately, leaving me alone to answer all the questions. And I was totally overwhelmed with the process. I was scared, I was hurting, and I was worried about my fiance. I didn't know where he was or what was really going on. So when I finally was able to join him at the ER, we were separated. And it was more than 6 hours before we were able to either see or talk with one another. We went through batteries of tests and were held over for observation. And it was a pretty scary process.
And how did the injuries affect the day-to-day life in the weeks that followed the accident?
Well, the biggest thing was that we both suffered severe concussions. We had constant nausea, dizziness. We had difficulty walking. We experienced head and neck and back aches. It seemed like everything began to hurt. I experienced severe double vision and memory issues. Um, our everyday activities were a challenge and we're extremely frustrated. And um, it was really an unfortunate experience because we were in two different states at the time trying to go through this and heal together and yet separately.
Mm.
I never did come back to Casper. I continued to remain in Virginia, and Joe and I were married 4 months later. So it it affected everything about what going on in our lives on a day-to-day basis.
And how was it to balance the medical appointments with recovery?
A nightmare, actually. It was a nightmare. I immediately had problems with insurance coverage because it was out of state and third party pay. I called daily trying to get appointments and was continually declined because of lack of coverage. And our insurance, our personal insurance, mine was not willing to cover it, knowing that it was a third party accident. So the stress of all of that actually was debilitating, and depression set in for me. That was pretty severe. I spent hours crying and was unable to get out of bed. The My husband felt badly that I couldn't get treated, and so he actually filed a claim against his own auto insurance policy in order to see to it that I could finally start getting treatment. Um, and the problem really for us was that at that same time, the other driver's insurance company began to harass us with questions and demands. And not having had any experience with this, we were pretty naive in thinking that they would be fair because they knew that their client was 100% at fault, but we were very mistaken. And they uh, they offered little bits of money. Well, you owe this and you owe that, and then you have to pay this. And it was pretty overwhelming. And that was the biggest thing that we felt was just totally overwhelmed by this process. Making appointments, trying to keep them, trouble with remembering what we needed to, still having dizziness on a daily basis. We actually both were treated for over a year for our concussions because they were so severe.
Mm. And after the accident, how did you hear about Parker McConkie and what prompted you to reach out?
Well, actually, my husband's niece lived in Casper, and she gave us three names. I left a message for one. One was too busy. The other one never did return my call. And then there you were. My first contact with your firm was with Amber. She was a receptionist at the time. And the girls were so friendly and reassuring. They actually provided hope from the very first contact. We were made to feel like we were family. And when we asked if they would represent us, and their answer was yes, it was the beginning of the first peace we had known since that accident.
And throughout your case, you would say that you felt communicated with and well supported.
Absolutely. We were always explained the legal process clearly. We had lots of questions. And we were always made to understand what options we had, that allowed us to move forward with our lives. We were always confident in your representation. We felt we were in good hands. The biggest thing for us is we were really impressed with your firm's responsiveness. Um, you began to fight hard for us, and it felt like we actually had a friend fighting for us. Um, Being able to allow that burden of all of the paperwork that was being generated was such a relief. Not only was your staff knowledgeable, but they were always personable and supportive of us. We were never made to feel that any of our questions were unimportant or a bother. Your staff was always a smile on the other end of the line. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to paralegal Brittany for her hard work, working extra hard to ensure our success. I know that it's her job, but it was our life, and we felt like she went above and beyond to um, always show compassion and patience. They were exemplary, and we were very grateful that she was on our side.
And regarding the outcome of your case, were we able to help achieve what you had hoped for?
Actually, you exceeded our expectations. Um, we, we had received very nominal or offers from the other insurance company. And knowing that we no longer had to deal with that and could forward all paperwork to you all, gave us peace and confidence, and encouraged us to focus on our healing instead of all of the anxiety that was surrounded by that incident.
What would you say looking back, does it mean to you to have had Parker and McConkie in your corner, maybe during one of the most difficult times of your life?
To be honest, it was a miracle. It was an answer to prayer. And the experience we had with every form of staff, whether it was the receptionist, someone who transferred a phone call, the paralegal, we were never made to feel as though it was a bother. You always made us feel as though you were fighting hard for us. And absolutely, we were amazed by the result that you were able to achieve in our settlement.
And what would you say to someone who's seriously injured, who's maybe hesitant to reaching out to a lawyer and hesitant to Parker and McConkie?
Please do yourself a favor and do it. We waited a rather long time because we were so naive about the process. Um, and you attorneys are actually scary people. And so at least when your um, your thinking is muddled and there's a lot of fear involved. And my experience with Parker and McConkie has been nothing but an absolute dream. And I would encourage anyone who is struggling through this process to contact you. You're an amazing team, and you operate as a team, and it felt like everyone was on our side.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it and are grateful that you were able to place your trust in us, and we're glad that we were able to help you and have a good experience.
Thank you so much. God bless all of you. We are very, very grateful for all of you, especially being long distance. That makes the process a little bit more difficult than normal. And actually, you really took the pain out of that circumstance for us, and that was the biggest relief. You always encouraged us and brought a lot of peace to the circumstances for us. And because it was pretty scary. And even though we're removed from the settlement, we still are experiencing issues that will continue in our life. Everything in our life changed in a second. And so I would encourage anyone who had questions even to give you a call, because everyone who answers is knowledgeable, competent, and friendly.